But if you ask the Democrat Socialists of America, the real reason this is happening is NATO and the spread of imperialism, they say. Saying, quote, DSA reaffirms our call for the U.S. to withdraw from NATO and to end the imperialist expansionism that set the stage for this conflict. Now, it's not surprising. Imperialism is code for capitalism to them. Capitalism and freedom. That's what they really hate that NATO spreads. It shouldn't surprise anyone. The likes of Bernie Sanders and AOC took this stance. These are the people who blame Israel for defending itself against an onslaught of air bombs fired at innocent people. So naturally, they're going to blame a peacekeeping alliance designed to protect freedom for Vladimir Putin's ridiculous crusade. In the end, those two have more in common with Putin. Bernie and AOC would love to see the reemergence of the Soviet Union. Their paradise, hundreds of millions of people living in equitable poverty, just as long as they get to sit at the top, right? It mirrors their plans for this country as well. So what is Putin really thinking? Andrei Illarionov worked for years with Vladimir Putin, and he is now a senior fellow at the Center for Security Policy. And Andrei, we want to thank you so much for coming on. You were a former economic policy advisor to Vladimir Putin. What can you tell us about him, and what can you tell us about the moves he's made recently? Do you think was this always planned, or is he losing his mind?
Good evening. Thank you very much for inviting me to this talk.
Sure.
As for Mr. Putin, he was planning attack on Ukraine for last two decades. We can recall the first signs of his preparations in year 2001 and in year 2002. So this is a very long-term strategy, and his goal is to conquer all Ukraine. He said it not once, many times. He said it, and he has written extensively, and he has expressed himself many, many times. His purpose is to capture Ukraine fully.
When you look at the situation as it stands now, though, with the country fighting back quite dramatically, I think maybe he thought this was going to be simpler and an easier process. We're watching as the process of taking Ukraine destroys his country. It really is. I mean, the financial cost of this, what it's going to do to that country, is going to be tremendous. Did he calculate for this?
He does not care about this much. As well, he does not care about views of oligarchs about whom you were talking a little bit a few minutes ago. Wow. So with all what you said correctly about oligarchs, they do not have power in Russia at all. All power belongs to Putin, and Putin decides who is oligarch, who can be oligarch, who will be oligarch, who won't be oligarch. So oligarchs, with all pressure you can put on oligarchs, they cannot change attitudes and the policy decision of Putin. To make changes in policy strategy and in decision-making process of Putin, you need to apply different measures.
Such as what?
At this moment, the crucial help could come from the United States and NATO. A number of very important steps which still is not considered by the U.S. leadership, unfortunately. So this is introduction of no-fly zone over Ukraine, number one. Second, it's sending U.S. troops to secure humanitarian corridors in the western Ukraine to allow people to leave the areas of islands. Second. Third, to cut all transportation links with Russia by air, by land, by sea, fully, completely.
Isn't there a threat that would escalate this, though? That's the big concern, right? Is that if the West gets involved at all, it turns into something different, and that could lead us. I mean, that's why he's flexing his nuclear missiles, right?
No, it's not yet nuclear missiles, but how much you can escalate more? Thousands of Ukrainians are dying right now under shelling from the Russian aggressor in Kharkiv, in Kiev, in all cities and all towns around Ukraine. So what can be worse? And Putin will not stop in Ukraine. The next target is Baltic countries. Next target is Poland. And Putin said publicly that his goal is 1997 line of division for Europe. So it is in those documents that he has presented last December. So that is why if the West collectively would not stop Putin right now, he will go further to Europe.
And you're saying, I'm sorry, you're saying that there's nobody inside that country. If they watch this country if they watch Russia get destroyed in the process of this, which is happening right now, there's nobody that can stop this except for him. There's nobody that can. I mean, the Soviet Union, they removed leaders in the past, didn't they? There's got to be some kind of methodology for that. I think that there's not very many people that agree with Putin at all inside that country. I can't imagine there are.
No, but how can you remove Stalin during Stalinist time? How you would remove Hitler in the Hitler's time? So the situation is not very different from those cases. There is no someone around who could do what are you talking about. There is only one case and only one force that can change this game. It is the United States and NATO. There is no other instruments. Nobody should be.
Do you think that leads to a? Does that lead to a full military and potentially nuclear conflict, though?
No. But if the United States would send U.S. military for defending humanitarian convoys in the Western Ukraine, that would substantially stabilize the situation and would lead much faster to the peace negotiations. That's a way how to get peace and how to stop war.
One final question for you. When you look at Vladimir Putin, when he talks now, you worked with this man, which is interesting enough. What do you see in him? Do you think he's sick? Do you believe those rumors? Do you think is he crazy? What's your assessment?
I can tell you, if he could not be stopped now, he will go further. Once again, and that's exactly what we saw in 1938, 1939 in Europe with Czechoslovakia. When Hitler was not stopped in Czechoslovakia, he moved further to Poland, to Austria, to France, and to other countries. If Putin will not be stopped in Ukraine, he will go further. Ukraine now has the strongest army in Europe, as we can see. Army that is effectively resisting to the Russian aggressor. The United States and NATO and the West could not allow themselves to lose such a wonderful army and such a wonderful country.
Sir, thank you so much for taking the time. A former advisor to Vladimir Putin, knows him probably better than most people do, at least in the West. We do appreciate your perspective on that. It's very interesting.
Thanks.